We'll be discussing a few things which an HR professional should take into consideration while structuring or while conducting interviews for new appointments or recruitments. So here we go. So interviewing skills. So what we will be discussing about is how to structure an interview or how to structure the interview process. How important is it to ask effective questions or right questions at right time so that you can gauge or judge the capabilities of the interviewee. Being empathetic is something that not just an interviewer is needed to have, but even a boss, even a good leader, even a good professional should be empathetic. So empathy is a virtue, or empathy is something that every human being should possess. And observation skills obviously are needed for an interviewer, because sometimes when you look at a person answering your questions or asking questions to you or talking something, you can obviously know a lot of things about that person's personality, about that person's attitude, about that person's uh, knowledge, everything. So these are the basic topics or basic outline. This is the basic outline of today's session. So we'll take each topic one by one and we'll discuss it. Obviously, like I said, I want participation. Knowing the process, structuring the interview. First part is knowing the process. Knowing the process is, as an HR professional, you should be well versed, or you should very well know how the interview is going to proceed. You should be ready with interviewers panel, the, how many people are going to take the interview, how many people will be included in that interview, the people who will be taking the interview are from which domains, which person wants to assess which kind of quality of the interviewee. All these things should be clear before starting the interview. The steps to be followed during the interview, or the steps before and after interview. I mean, the total process of recruitment. This also should be clear. How many people are to be interviewed today? So suppose you have an interview for a particular post, and there are 15 or 20 applicants. So how many people you are supposed to interview on that particular day? What will be the ideal duration of the interview? All these things, if we pre-structure them or if we pre-decide them, then it becomes easier for us to devote proper time, as well as it becomes easy for the interviewee also to keep themselves ready accordingly. So this is the first thing, very basic thing. We all do this, obviously. Plan flow of the interview. Once you're done with structuring the total process of interview, that is what is it, what you are going to do before interview, after interview, during. Plan the flow. Flow is who's going to ask the question first. If there is a panel of 5 people or 7 people who is interviewing, then they should uh, beforehand decide what is it that they are going to ask, who is going to ask which kind of question, how are they going to speak. If one person speaks first, who's going to speak first? All these things, if they are pre-decided, then it becomes easier for you all, or for the HR professionals, or for the interviewers to move ahead in the interview smoothly. So these are actually very basic things, but sometimes we just ignore, or sometimes we just get overconfident. अरे इतने interview करवाए हैं, अब क्या करना? So this becomes a maybe attitude of us as HR professional or as team of recruiters, that we'll be able to do it or we'll be able to manage it. But if these things are done properly beforehand, then it becomes easier for everyone around this recruitment process. Next very important thing is, what is it that I want from this candidate? If this candidate or if this interviewee is going to join my company, if I want this person to join my company, what is it that I'm looking for? Many a times some HR person comes and sits for interview and he doesn't know what is it that we are supposed to ask, or for which post we are taking the interview. So this shouldn't be the case actually. The interviewer should know the JD, that is the job description they have displayed or job description they have published while recruitment. So if the interviewer knows the JD, the job description properly, then he'll be able to understand what is it that I am supposed to check during the interview. If you are hiring for a person in a leadership role or in a managerial role, then obviously that time it becomes crucial for you to assess that person's leadership qualities, becomes crucial for you to assess his leadership experience. So when you are clear in your head about what is it that you want the person to do, or what is it that the person should possess, what qualities the person should possess, if this clarity you have in your mind, then it becomes easier for you as an interviewer to check or to judge or to assess those qualities. Next thing is evaluation system. This is a very important thing. When we talk about behavioral aspects of a person's, the behavioral qualities, then it becomes very difficult to number or to assess or to come to a conclusion. If there is a panel of 4 or 5 people, then it becomes difficult for them to come to a conclusion. So in that case, there should be a grading or evaluation system that should be ready in your hand before the interview starts. This ensures that everyone taking the interview is on same page. They know how to evaluate. They know what kind of points to be given to the candidate, and the selection process also becomes smooth and less conflict oriented, or the conflict will reduce obviously. So evaluation, having an evaluation or grading system, or how you are going to mark the candidate, is very important. So if this evaluation system is in place, then how much weightage is to be given to what point or what quality, all these things, if they are clear, it becomes easier for the person to mark the candidate. Am I going too fast, or this is okay? Right. So next part of structuring the interview, researching about the candidate. Going through the biodata before the candidate enters the interview room is very important. Going through their resume, knowing the person, on the paper, obviously, uh, knowing the background of the person, knowing the details, career experience, what they have mentioned inside in their resume. All these things should be researched, or all these things should be checked or gone through before starting the interview. This benefits you in a lot of ways. First thing is you can assess whether the person really has the capabilities that he or she has written in the resume. Second thing, the resume, resume is called mirror of a person actually. So as an HR professional, when we get more experience, or when we conduct more interviews, or when we conduct more recruitments, you can easily or very nicely say that this resume looks good. So the candidates, you create some perception about the candidate in your head after go through the resume, and that helps you to understand whether the person is the person who has written the resume, or if the person is really capable or not. So this some research is I request everyone to please stay on mute. If you want to talk, you can just unmute and say something, but don't just unmute and disturb. Okay. So taking notes during interview is very important. Again, this is important. Why? Because when you have to decide on something, when you have to conclude, when you are supposed to select one person, the points that you want to highlight, or the points that you liked, or the points that you will mark as negative points, you should be able to convey those points to your team. So if you have a note, if you have taken notes, if you are interviewing two people, it's okay, if you don't take notes. But if you are interviewing 15 people or 20 people, you will not be able to point out that this specific person had said this, which I liked, or I found this specific characteristics of this XYZ person to be annoying or to be negative. So you won't be able to point out that unless and until you have detailed notes, or you have noted down some of the things that can be decisive while selection. So taking notes during interview, writing down the points that you find important during interview is recommended. Next thing is conclusion of the interview. This is something that we generally miss. Concluding the interview, telling the candidate about next timeline, that is what is going to happen next steps, all these things, giving feedback to the person. Generally, we miss this also. The person who sits in front of you for interview expects you to give them feedback, or will benefit from your feedback. So we should make it a point to give them a feedback, honest feedback about what we liked, what can they improve in their next interview if you have made your mind that you are not supposed to, you don't want to select them, or if at all you want to select them but you want them to improve on a few things. So these kind of feedbacks, if possible, should be given at the end of the interview. So concluding the call, concluding the interview well is very important. Next thing is reviewing. Obviously, the team should review the interview session, the interview. They should know, like I said, the points each person from the interview panel wants to put forth. All these points should be consolidated and a common decision should be taken upon. So this review mechanism is also very important. So this is the first part, structuring the interview. So anybody wants to add anything to this, or anybody wants to share their experience, or anybody wants to ask anything, you're welcome. Then we'll move to the next part.
Actually, taking the notes on topic is there. So, what the important point means? What are the points we need to take on during the
What,
interview?
right. The points that you feel important. These points can be decisive while selecting this candidate. If you are a panel of 5 people, other four may miss out something that you saw in that candidate, which you think is very important quality, or which you think is a can be a decision maker quality for that candidate selection. So what are the things that I find important during this interview that I am supposed to? There is no fixed structure, or taking notes doesn't mean you have to write question by question what they have answered. No, if you find that the candidate is very honest and you think that this quality is something which should be which is important to you. So if you note it down that XYZ, I found this person very honest. So when when you sit with your team for review and you say that I found this person very honest. Why? Because something of this sort, that the person said these words and I think these words matter, or what he said means that this person is honest. So if the team has missed out on something such important, and they understand or they recollect, oh yes, we missed this point. So this kind of notes, if we keep, it can be used for final decision making while selecting the candidate. I hope you got your
Yeah,
answers. Yi?
yeah.
Yes.
Got it, got it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Yes. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wants to add? You're welcome to add things, because I'm sitting here as a trainer, but that doesn't mean that I know everything. So there will be a few people amongst us who have more experience or very well experienced in recruitment. So you're welcome to share your experiences also. Anyone? Okay. Anyone else wants to ask anything about the points we discussed? All right. Okay. So we will move to the next part, questions. Knowing what to ask, what kind of question can generate what kind of response, what is it that I am expecting the person to answer, or what kind of answer will say that this person has this kind of qualities. All this should be, decided, or all this should be kept in mind while asking question. Asking effective question doesn't mean that you prepare a list of 20 questions and ask 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, there will be obviously spontaneous questions. There will be questions based on their resume. There will be questions based on their answers. But again, I should know what is it that I'm searching for in this person, and my questions should be in that direction. So what does effective question mean? Obviously, open-ended questions leave room for the person to express themselves, for the person to, talk about their experiences. To it helps in to let I mean it helps us to understand how the person chooses their word, all these kind of things. So open-ended questions are obviously what we prefer and what we use in interviews. Behavioral questions are the questions which check how is the attitude of the person or the soft skills that the person possesses. An example of behavioral question can be, if you have a team of so many people, and there is dispute in your team, or there is the team is divided into two subgroups. How will you bring them back together, or how will you build the trust of your team? Such kind of questions will help you assess the leadership qualities of that person. Such kind of question will help you assess how the person is capable of handling conflict, or resolving conflict, or problem solving skills. So behavioral questions are come in that category. Situational questions can be technical or non-technical. For technical situational questions, obviously you'll ask something about if some workflow process is stuck somewhere, or these kind of things. So a technical situation or a non-technical situation. Situational questions can be in both the things. So again, it will help you understand the creativity of the person, the problem-solving skills of the person, how promptly the person can, think about a solution. These kind of things can be assessed through the situational questions. Decision making, again, decision making is something that a situational question can help you understand. Role specific questions are obviously are supposed to be asked. Obviously, like I said earlier, if we are searching for a manager, then we should be assessing leadership qualities. If we are searching for a team member, then we should be we should assess that person's team building qualities, or how that person will behave or can behave with a team, can blend in a team. So these kind of things. Next thing is values and ethics is something every company has their own, you know, values or their policies which are non-negotiable or which they think are very important. Like when you talk about Tata's, their value system or their, you know, value policy, the policy is based on values. It's very strong. Their values of Tata's are very strong and they are well known. So they don't want to compromise on their values. So they will, so a person, when you are hiring a person, we should be able to judge that person's value system, whether it is matching with our company's value system or not. So assessing values and ethics is very important. How a person is receiving a feedback, or how a person is reacting to a feedback. If you ask such kind of questions which jumble them, or which put them in some kind of uh, questioning mode or some dilemma, so in that case you can understand how well the person is taking your feedback. Or maybe you can ask that person, Acha, have you received some criticism from someone? How have you taken it? Did your superiors or in your earlier job give you some feedback about your working style or something, and you improved on your working style, or you worked on it? So these kind of questions can help you understand that this person is flexible enough to take feedback, to work on themselves, and to improve. What not to ask is a very important thing to know as an HR professional. If the person is not willing to disclose more about their personal lives or such things, we shouldn't insist, or we shouldn't, come up with such questions again and again. The questions related to someone's religion, the questions related to political affiliation, you like which party, or you voted which party in last election. These kind of questions should be avoided, because the person may not like it, first thing, and second thing, it doesn't serve much purpose for your interview. So knowing what not to ask, again, the religious beliefs, the caste, or sexual orientation of the person, these kind of things should not be asked during interviews. Yes, medical history can be asked if it is required for you. If you're searching for a person who is working on a show, who is supposed to work on shop floor, or who is supposed to, stand for 8 hours during his work time, then medical history should be asked. But then asking, instead of asking for medical history, don't we have something called medical examination? That is a process that is conducted, for the selected people, or during the interview process. I mean, during the selection process somewhere. So medical examination, according to company standards, are conducted before joining of the person. So medical history, if you have some specific questions related to someone, like if, for example, if you are hiring someone for the post of a driver, and that person has mentioned, if you can see that person is, I mean, he has some problem in his eyes, so you obviously need to clarify it. right? But otherwise, we cannot just randomly ask, tell us about your medical history. But if I want that person to work for 10 hours on shop floor and stand there, I can obviously ask indirectly, maybe if not directly, have you worked at a shop floor first before? Or have you just, your previous experience was in office or on shop floor? So assessing that person's physical capabilities is important. But again, like I said, obviously we go for medical examination. So detailed medical history will be, the detailed medical examination will be done. But if that person's job requirement or job requires the person to, have some physical strength, you can always talk about it. I hope I answered you, Deepak. And next thing is active listening. When we are, you know, on other side of table and we are interviewing, we should always remember that the person sitting in front of me, I was in that place a few years ago. Listening to the, many a times what happens is we are sitting in front of someone, obviously, and I won't say we do it purposefully, but it happens many a times that if you are interviewing someone, you're simultaneously doing something on this. Maybe you are replying to some important mails. I'm not saying that we do it purposefully or we do it just to humiliate the interviewee, but being attentive, listening to the person, showing them that you are interested in what that person is talking, gives them confidence, gives them the understanding that my interview is going well or these people are really interested in me. If you have some urgent work, we should have, obviously we all have that manners to, excuse me, I have an urgent call, I have to take this call. We shouldn't assume that this, because I am at this position and the interview is at this position or somewhere below me, we shouldn't assume that it's okay if I, take my call in between the conversation and just ignore what the, or maybe the person should not perceive that you're ignoring. So this thing is very important. Again, this is important to keep that person's confidence level high, to keep that person feel welcome, to keep that person in a comfortable environment so that that person can be his or her true self and answer your questions. So this was all about effective questions. Anyone wants to add anything here or ask anything more or whatever? So forum is open for 1 or 2 minutes and then we'll move to the next part.
Assessing value and ethics on point is so what we can assess actually that is for company policies they are having some values and ethics, but here that person will not know right what is the values and ethics. So in that case, what question we need to assess?
You know, if you are hiring someone for accounts department, you can just ask them about, what is your opinion about the frauds that people do in their companies? Obviously, this is a direct question and nobody will say, "Ha, I'm okay, agar fraud jisko karna hai karne." So obviously, nobody will say that. But values and ethics is something that, you don't assess through through direct questions. When a person says during their interview that, you know, I'm a very straightforward person. I don't like people who lie to me. So you can, when you're noting in your sheet, this can be a plus point. This can be a this can be taken as a characteristics of that person. This person doesn't like people who lie. Or when the person shares his or her experience. I was part of this some project, and my superiors wanted me to, do a few things which were not acceptable to me. So I backed out from the project. Maybe he got a negative marking on his, appraisal or whatever in that company. But this thing can be a matter of plus point for your company. So the way the person expresses himself or herself, the way the person talks about what is right and what is wrong according to them. These kind of things can be used to understand their values system. What is it that they believe in? So these kind of indirect observations will be helpful to understand whether his or
Yeah.
her value system is matching with your company's or value system or no.
Yeah, got it. And the
Yeah.
feedback reception on point, right? So in feedback reception, whether we are going to assess the candidate, whatever feedback, whenever we are giving on the time of work, he is accepting and he is progressing as per the feedback. That is the thing we are going to assess, or previous
Yes,
experience,
feedback
anything.
reception
Yeah.
is, you can ask them, have you been told by some of your seniors sometime that you need to improve on something and you worked on it? So if that person is able to give you an answer, that means that person is aware that this was given to me, this kind of feedback was given to me, and I worked on it because I thought that this was important to be worked on. Second thing is feedback reception can be taken as, you know, what you are saying and how the person's expressions are changing. This, obviously, this will be a part of observation skills again. But here, for questions matter, feedback reception will mean, can they point out something which their seniors, their superiors have suggested, and they accepted it and they worked on it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So we have a question in chat box. Is it required to know the psychological situation of candidates? Yes. This is also very important. If that person hides something, then you can't really do anything. But again, there are the tests that most of the companies nowadays conduct, psychometric tests. These kind of tests will help you understand the psychological situation of the candidate. Plus, if you observe something very unnatural during the interview, like if a person is too anxious beyond limit. I mean, that person is not able to sit properly. That person is not able to talk properly. That person is sweating a lot. That person is asking for water again and again. That person is stammering. Something of this sort, very unnatural, is happening. Then you may go ahead and ask that person then and there, or you may need to put an asterisk in your notes and get that person's psychological situation verified later on, because as it is, we are going through a lot of stress at work. We are expected to work in stressful situations. We are expected to work with deadlines, and if a person is not psychologically otherwise stable, that person will not be able to handle the pressure. So understanding the psychological situation, if you find something abnormal, you should be, you should obviously investigate it. Yes. So this was all about effective questions. So now we'll move to empathy. Empathy is something which is this topic is very close to my heart because this is not, just for people. I mean, the obviously we will today talk about empathy in interview process, but otherwise also being empathetic and showing empathy is something a person should possess. Obviously, showing empathy means making that person comfortable. Again, I would say we all know, or the interviewer or the recruiter already knows that he is at this place, he or she is at this place, and the interviewee is somewhere below you. We already know this, but is it wise to show this difference to the interviewee again and again? No. So we should be genuinely making them comfortable. We should be genuinely keeping the atmosphere, comfortable and cozy for the person so that he or she, speaks his heart out. So comfortable environment, providing a comfortable environment is very important. Honest communication. We as recruiters or interviewers, there is no need to, exaggerate things or show off things. It's not needed. So being as honest as possible. If I'm honest, the person sitting in front of me will be ready to show his real self. So honest communication, trying to stay honest in your communication is very important. Trust and rapport. Obviously, when the person comes and he sees, there are 5 people sitting in front of me, obviously we all have this, we are all anxious and nervous during the interview. So making that person comfortable, building rapport, asking some random questions here and there before they settle down, till the time they settle down, and then beginning the actual interview or then beginning the actual assessment is very important. For the matter of, keeping their trust, or I mean, building rapport with them and developing trust in their mind, we obviously always ask these kind of questions like, how are you today? Don't be nervous. You can have water if you want. All these kind of things help that person settle down and stay comfortable. Inclusion is something that has been recently talked about very much all over the world. We as human beings tend to be biased towards a specific gender, towards some physical capabilities, or towards skin color, or towards a person's caste or race. So am I doing that as an interviewer, or am I doing that as a recruiter? Diversity and inclusion is something which is very, very popular topic in today's world. As far as companies are concerned, corporates are arranging sessions on these topics, diversity and inclusion. Big companies like, I mean, I stay in Chhattisgarh, so big companies like Vedanta, they are recruiting people from third gender. Transgenders are being recruited in security or in various positions. So I should be open to include everyone. I should not judge a person based on their gender or based on their, maybe their cultural background. Many a times it is said, I mean, people make these kind of remarks. She's a lady, she cannot handle this job. or a person, nowadays in even banks are recruiting people with eye problems, deaf and dumb people. I know a lady who prints passbooks in one bank. She's blind. They have given her voice assistant. So this kind of inclusion, wherever possible, we should be open for it, and we should be willing to expand our horizons and expand our humanity to include all kind of people in our mainstream work. Cultural sensitivity is very important. Some people will when we say cultural sensitivity, whenever this ISRO's any mission comes, there I mean, on social media there are a lot of photos of this women who are in saris, the women who work for ISRO. So with that memes or with that photos, there are many things written like, you are not just modern if you dress modern, you are modern by your thinking. Or we make a perception about a person by their appearance or by their cultural existence. So these kind of things shouldn't be happening. We should be cultural sensitive. There will be, I mean, we have seen obviously the women in ISRO. We all must have seen the pictures of them after each expedition of ISRO, like Mangalyaan and now latest Chandrayaan. So a person's cultural preferences cannot define the person's talent. So I should keep that in mind while interviewing a person. It is obvious that we make a perception of the person by first impression or by their first look, but we should be ready to look beyond it. I should be flexible enough to question my perception if the person sitting in front of me is talented enough. So this kind of cultural sensitivity, if I have, I will be able to hire a proper person for my work. People are sometimes overwhelmed by, while sharing their life stories or while sharing their professional work stories. So acknowledging their emotions, acknowledging what they feel is very important. This will help you understand that person well. This will help them to know that the people sitting in front of me are humans. They acknowledge emotions, they have emotions, and they are safe people in front of whom I'm sharing my story. So acknowledging emotions of the person sitting in front of me is very, very important. Reflective responses. While when we respond to someone, we should be responding with empathy. If we are, if some person say something, we should be able to understand, or we should be ready to paraphrase, or we should be ready to summarize and acknowledge their point of view. So reflective responses is something which is important. Respecting boundaries of the people. Again, because of cultural differences, because of a different kind of upbringings, because of the family cultures, there will be a few things which you may perceive as a negative point, or which you may perceive as wrong thing. But we should be ready to respect the boundaries. We should be ready to understand and accommodate people with different mindsets, or people with different cultural beliefs, or people with different backgrounds. इसका small example, respecting boundaries. If I mean, I am from a big city. I'm born and brought up in Mumbai, but I'm staying in a tier 2 city, or maybe you can call it even a tier 3 city since last 15 years. So for a person born and brought up in Mumbai, shaking hands with person of opposite gender is very common or very okay. I mean, I had never thought about it before I came here, that you need to, pause and think and shake hands with a person of opposite gender. But when I came here to the place where I'm staying right now, I happened to conduct personality development sessions for police personnel. There were constables, police sub-inspectors. I happened to take sessions for them, personality development sessions. These were one-to-one, not virtual sessions. So during that sessions, I offered them to come forth and shake hands with me. You won't believe that they were not ready to shake hands with a lady. Being a constable, one person narrated his experience. He said, being a constable, I have never interacted with a lady this way before. So this is and this is an example of, upbringing differences, or you can say it cultural differences, or whatever. But these kind of things happen. These kind of things exist. So respecting boundaries of other person in such a situation becomes very important, and obviously not getting biased because of these boundaries that a person creates. So understanding the boundaries of the other person and respecting them is important. So this is all about empathy. Anyone wants to add anything or ask anything? Otherwise, we'll move to the last part, that is observation skills. Okay, so let's move ahead. Obviously, when you grow as a person, or when you have more experience, you obviously know what kind of things to assess, what kind of things to look for, what kind of gestures mean what. Understanding the body language of the person, choice of word is very important. The words that a person is choosing. By words, I don't mean, their vocabulary. But if I'm sharing experience of my, previous boss or ex-boss, and I'm saying again and again, he is very pathetic, I was so fed up of that fellow. He was so dominating. These kind of words, if someone is using, they talk about their personality. These words speak about their personality, the personality of the interviewee, the personality of the candidate, you know. So what kind of words they are using? Are they using too many negative words in their conversation? If yes, this can be, you can think, or you can assess, or you can conclude that this person has a negative attitude. Body language, obviously, we all know, if the person is, lying, they'll look this side, that side. All these things, they are described in many books, body language thing. Listening skill. How are the listening skills of the person? If there is a contradictory point that you put forth, how is the person reacting? Is he raising his voice? Is he able to talk calmly? Is he able to accept what you are saying? Or he is eager to interrupt you in between and speak his point? As a team member, as a leader, as a person working with others, listening skills are very important. Reaction to questions. If you are cross-questioning them, how are they reacting? Are they able to keep their calm? Are they able to stay confident enough to answer your questions? So when we are observing these kind of things, we'll know about their personality, we will know about their attitude, we'll know about their interests, we will know about what they think, we'll know about their flexibility, are they rigid or they flexible, right? Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence again is a very popular topic nowadays. Is the person self-aware enough? Is the person aware about his or her own strong points as well as negative points? Is the person willing to work on his or her negative points? Is the person ready to empathize or ready to relate with other people's emotions? Does the person have social skills? How to interact with your juniors, how to interact with your superiors, how to interact with a labor person, all these things are very important. Consistency and alignment. Consistency and alignment is something which again you are going to assess as an interview. What the person is saying and what is written in his resume. Are these things matching? Yes or no? One simple thing I remember one interview that, one of my friends shared one incident about one interview that he conducted. The interviewee, the candidate had written in his resume that he, in hobbies, like to read. So my friend asked him, Acha, what is it that you're reading currently? So that fellow said, no, I have not read a book in last 4 years. So here you will know that the hobby reading that is written in the resume is only to impress the recruiter. So is there any kind of alignment between what is written in the resume and what the person is saying? Because a resume, we all know today we have AI tools, tell the AI, give the job description to AI and tell AI to create a resume for you or create the qualities for you to, and then you copy them and paste in your resume. If some person is has written problem solving skills. So what do you mean by problem solving skills? Can you give one example of it where you have used these skills in your life or in your work? If that person knows what he or she has written in the resume, he will respond. Here again, you will know about the person's values also. How true the person is. How true the person is. The resume is created only to impress the recruiter or the resume is genuine. So consistency and alignment in answers between the resume and answers. Is the tone consistent throughout the interview? Many a times people give contradictory statements within a span of 15 minutes. So you need to assess, you need to think which of the answer was correct or which of the answer is the true personality of this person. So checking their consistency and alignment is something that a recruiter should develop. This kind of skill the recruiter should develop. Observing the attitude. A simple question. Most of the times we ask the candidates, यहाँ आने में कोई तकलीफ तो नहीं हुई? Were you able to find the place easily? One person may say, yes, now we have Google Maps. I put the, location on the Google Map and I was able to come here easily. The other person may say, अरे सर मत पूछो, सुबह उठा तो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी गई थी, ठंडे पानी से नहाना पड़ा, देन एक मुश्किल से कैश बनाया ऑटो, उसका पंक्चर हो गया, बहुत मुश्किल से पहुंचा. The answers are very simple. The question is actually meaningless. The question doesn't have any sense in reality because it is not related to your qualifications or it is not related to your job role requirement or job requirement. But this question shows the attitude of the person. One person is solution focused, one person is problem focused. Which person do I want in my company? Obviously, I won't prefer a problem focused person because he'll keep on cribbing on his problems about his disadvantages or what is lacking. A solution focused person will talk about what he can do. And I will always prefer a person who is solution focused rather than problem focused. So assessing the attitude of the person through their answers, through their choice of words, through their way of speaking. This is very important. And obviously all this, if you include or all this, if you assess and understand, you'll come to know about the overall personality of the person. And this is where you're going to actually decide as an HR person whether I'm supposed to hire this person or not. So this is the last part. Anyone has any questions or I want to add anything, you're welcome. So there is one famous author, Jim Collins. What he has written is, people are not your most important asset. Right people are your assets. So finding the right person for my role or for recruitment is very important. So here we come to the end of the session.